Hello YouTube, and Modest here. I want to go ahead and get started on my next build that I promised you during the summer. You'd think I would go small, but as they would say, go big or go home. This is Hobby Boss's 1/35th scale German Iguana Panzerschellbrucke-2 in a 28-meter bridge laying tank. This is a kit that I was going to mention about building during the summers. Apologies for not getting into it too soon enough, but we're going to go ahead and talk about this kit, just a rehash. It's a pretty large kit. She is about 18 inches across by about 11 inches wide and about 4.5 inches in depth. I also want to introduce, once again, the Leguan. This is the Tankograd book that I purchased separately. A lot of great colored photos, all glossy pages, a lot of great history on how they produced this tank in German as well as in English. So I'm using this as a really nice reference for the build that we're going to be doing shortly. And just to make sure that I have enough of the photo etch, this is a set of Edwards photo etch for Leopard 2 A5, which is what the chassis is basically based on. It's based on an A5 or an A6 tank chassis. Getting the grills, getting some small photo etch that was not included in this kit. This kit does include some photo etch, but not the kind of ones that I wanted to use. So we're going to go and get started, and hopefully you'll follow along with me. So let's go ahead and unbox this bad boy, and let's just see what the contents are, just as a rehash from that poor video that I had. A very detailed instruction sheet. I'll talk about that in a moment. Your regular Hobby Boss future kits that they're coming out, and a nice colored guide for you painting the tank into what you want to build it as. As you can see in the box, it's quite large. A lot of stuff is packed all the way up to the rims. In fact, they probably put this bubble wrap here to protect the pieces from the box or shipping crushing the pieces. So that was very beneficial. Thank you, Hobby Boss, for doing that. So with this large kit, I just want to go over what the process is that I'm going to be doing. The instruction sheet is like your normal instruction sheet for your model kits. I'm going to probably build this thing out into 4 to 6 different steps. I've been reviewing it, taking a look at what needs to be built, making some comments. You might see up here, up above. A few little things down below. I can't see it down below there. Just to make sure that I know when to start, when to stop. And we're not going to build the whole thing in one shot. That's going to be impossible for me to do because I do work for a living on board the USS Iowa. So hopefully you'll be seeing me producing this marvelous tank and maybe a little bit extra stuff that I'm planning on doing as well to this tank. This is going to be my first build using my smartphone now. I just want to let you know that I might have some difficulties building this. Hopefully I'll be able to show you what I'm building. But the first part that we're going to do is going to be on the bottom hull, the chassis part, the road wheels. A very simple part, shouldn't take me too long to build, as well as the tracks, and we'll stop at that one part. So I go ahead and removed a majority of the trees of the kit. All I got left now are the road wheels, some of the suspension parts that I'm going to be unpacking as well. Over here in this box is where you're going to find the holes, the upper and lower holes of the tank itself. It does come with that rubbered track. We'll see about doing something about that later. The decals, and like I said, that small fret of photo etch there. And hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing with this later on. So let's go ahead and get started on the road wheels and move everything to the side for now. First of all, make sure you have your tools handy, your nippers, sprue cutters, whatever you want to call them, your knife, a pencil, and I'm going to use a small box to carry all those idler wheels, those road wheels there. Having all my stuff here, poly caps for the road wheels themselves. So let's go get it. Oh, almost forgot my glue, and let's start it. So on the instructions here, it shows us that we need to orient this tank in such a fashion. So there you go. Let's go ahead and start doing our cutting. As you can see, initially, very little flash. Looks very clean on those trees. And Modest building his, I would say his first tank kit in maybe, I would say about 10, maybe 12 years. Used to build a lot of the Tamiya kits. I think people were pretty satisfied with those Tamiya kits when they were first being produced. But now we got many other different types of brands here. Oops, sorry about that. Banging my head against that. You have Hobby Boss that's coming out now. It's been out for a while. This Tiger kit that I've been seeing a bunch of. I have a few of those model kits. Israeli armor. Looks pretty sweet. Hopefully I'll get to that soon. I think that's how it goes, right? Yep. Small pin there. Okay. Well, I'm going to keep banging against this. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Again, this is my first time building a kit with a camera right in front of me. The kit's right in front, between the table and me. What you're hearing as well is a small fan to keep me a little bit cooler in this last few days of the summer of 2023. So I'm almost finished with this. I just didn't want to show you the whole video recording, but just really quickly on the suspension, there's a small little pin. Let me put the hole down. There's a small little pin right here, really tiny, and it's just one pin that fits right inside that hole, right where I'm pointing at, more or less. I almost came by and I just glued it on, however, and so no. That's why you always dry fit your parts, ladies and gentlemen. I know most of you are experienced modelers, but just to make sure, always dry fit. I don't know how many times I put a model together. No, dang it, that does not go there. Oh, no, that doesn't go there. So watch what you're doing. And there's your suspension. Just need to put these idler wheels, I believe they're called. I'm not sure what they're called, those guys down here. They're usually on the top part of the lower hull to return the tracks back to the position without them sagging too much. So that's going to be the next part. Okay, so go ahead, cut off L1. And also want to point out right now, I just slapped on my magnifiers. As I'm getting older, beginning to realize, oh my gosh, I can't see what I'm doing anymore. Make sure I get the cutting the right piece off. Make sure I get the right tree. I've done that a couple times. And that magnifiers are a pretty cool thing to have. Let's see, L3. That's these guys here. So I was getting ready to put those little small wheels on the upper hull there. There is some flash that you might need to remove to make sure you get a nice flush area. So always check. I don't know of any model that does not have any flash on them. So be aware of that as well. So another thing as well, I want to point out, most of us have a set of tweezers, but I'm beginning to really enjoy these crisscrossing locking tweezers. Okay, I hope I can see that. You can find them at almost any hobby store or Amazon. I think I got these from. They're very nice, very good at holding some of my photo etch stuff that I have for my smaller scale ships. So I'm going to be using that to install these little pins. Okay, these little guys for the return wheels. So let's see how that works. And the trick is to install this and releasing it at the same time. There you go. Let me turn around this way. First one in, no worries. Okay. Just really quickly, when you're attaching those struts on there, keep an eye on the holes that are here. There are a bunch of them. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's only 4 of these pins that I'm putting on there for the return wheel. So watch your instructions. I know you guys are pretty well aware of that, but for anybody who's first building their first tank, like I am, a long time, be aware of that. Always check your instructions. Always dry fit, making sure that everything goes in there smoothly so you get less frustrated. I mean, the hobby is supposed to be fun, not frustratingly fun. Okay, next one on. And when you're using those locking tweezers, be mindful of the rounded portions, those rounded areas there. They will tend to pop away, and that adds more frustration for us modelers. It does have a bit of a serrated edge on there. I'm not too concerned. And there's your first batch. Right along here. Okay. All right, so with the rest of the return wheel bogies here, I'm gonna go ahead and just give it just a little bit extra glue right on those edges there, making sure they're secured, making sure everything's nice. I mean, this is gonna be underneath the tracks. You're probably not gonna see this anymore. Oh, there goes one right there, I'll tell you. Get some more of that glue on there. Press it down. As I came by, it fell off a little bit. Not a major issue. Again, you're probably not going to see this once the tracks are installed. And you paint it and you weather it. Oh, Mario, you going to weather it? I'm not going to say if I am or not. I'm going to hold that until the end. But that's the first page, roughly. There's just a couple more pieces that need to be added for the track itself. I'm not sure what you call that part. I'm sorry, guys. I'm a sailor, not a tanker. But that part where it's tooth over there at the end, as well as the idler wheel, I think that's what it's called over there at the front end. So we'll put those things on next. Another tool that I like using quite often, you know, the nippers, they're good. They're good to use to trim off things, cut things off, whatnot. But what happens if you get like something that's really tight in there, like this little part of the tree right here? See that little part of the tree? So I like to use nail clippers. Yeah, I have a pair of nail clippers, not just for my manicures and whatnot, but it does give it a nicer looking, cleaner looking cut edge, so you don't have to file as much, so you don't have to use your hobby knife, cut your fingers off, whatever the case will be. I use nail clippers. Hope some of you guys do too. I almost did my first full paw. Getting ready to put this suspension part on there. I have two of them, one for either side, of course. But as I was cutting it and removing a little bit of the flash, a little bit of the seam, getting ready to install it, looking at my instructions. Like I said, I'm not a tanker guy, and I notice, hey, wait a minute, which part do I have here? How's this thing oriented? L6 there. How's that oriented? And I came by, was putting it on, and came by, was, no, that's not it. No, that's not it. Is that it? Or is it? Or is it this guy over here? Or is it this one here? I think it's this one. So always dry fit. And as I put that on, and as I'm looking at the diagram there, that's not right. So always, people, dry fit. Make sure you get the right part on. There's nothing more frustrating once you glued it on, once everything's all ship shape, that you get the wrong part on. So double check, make sure everything's okay. So real quick, everything's been installed. Over there on the right side, the idler wheel, the track wheel, the idler wheel, your road return track wheels. I think these guys spin, right? In reality, these guys spin. Those return rollers, I think they do spin. Let me know. So I'm going to go ahead and do the left side and then put on the suspension in just a moment. So right now, the left side has been done. For page 1, part 1 of that Leguan, that Iguana bridge lane tank. Next part, page 2, is to put down the suspension parts for the actual road wheels and then building out those road wheels. I've already done the other side, on the right side. Putting in the sprocket. I just remember what that bloody thing was. A sprocket wheel. And the idler. Make sure they're in the correct places. So it's need to attach those return wheels back on there. I'll get to it. No worries. So as I was getting ready to cut out the rest of these return wheels for the track, this is on a separate sprue, not like the ones that you see over here on the sides here. But as I was getting ready to pull this other bag out, a couple of pieces popped out. I almost lost my first two pieces. Oh my gosh. I don't know what they're for. They look like important pieces for the bridge lane equipment. But always keep your bags. Don't throw out your bags until you're finished doing everything on that tree. Then throw the whole tree away. Another helpful hint. You know, on that note, what I'll probably do, got some painter's tape. I always have that handy with me. Just attach those pieces back on there. You don't lose them. Put them back in the correct tree. That these bloody things don't get lost again. It's nothing worse than losing parts. I tell you, people. Don't lose your parts. That's probably been the most frustrating thing you'll ever have happen. In modeling, that is. So as I was cutting away at those return rollers, just real quick, I'm sure you noticed, it's kind of hard to see, but I came by and I used my knife to do a lot of my cleaning. I rarely sand. I should do that more often. I mean, unless of course someone's gonna, hey dude, let me look underneath your chassis. Excuse me? No, I don't think so. You're not gonna notice that too much, but the road wheels you probably will, since those return tracks are gonna be underneath the skirt. Hey, let me check out your skirt. Excuse me? So you might want to sand those instead of using your knife, gouging it, making the edge a little flat. I'm not sure you can see that too well. Edge a little flat on that leading edge right there. So use sanding sticks for those wheels. Another helpful tip. Getting ready to do those road wheels. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and put those suspension rods down. In this case, I'm going to add a bit of glue inside the hole and outside the hole. Make sure those guys are nice and secure. You know what? Let me start from the back. You know, having that box of all your parts is pretty handy. I have to admit, I got that from watching some of you tanker guys build your models and having the same repeated part over and over and over again. I have to admit, put it on the suspensions, cutting them out from the trees. I was going, my God, that's so laborious. Oh my gosh. And I haven't even done the road wheels yet. How you guys keep your sanity? For a ship, it's not that bad. I mean, you're just dealing with the weapons, the hull. Make sure your ship don't sink. But here, you got to make sure that all your parts are nicely aligned. You want to make sure that everything's level. Which, being on a ship, you want to make sure everything's level too. Then, as I was noticing, as I was cutting out for the trees, you know, you have the trees being repeated. So there was one tree that was cut. Wait a minute, well, I have extra parts here. And I'm looking, no, I'm supposed to cut only 14 of these. And I said, oh, I got 16 of these things. I want to cut it any more than I need to. And voila. Piece of cake. Now, you want to check that suspension. Make sure they're all even keel. They're all straight. Make sure all those pins that I'm pointing to right now, because once you attach those road wheels on there, boy, oh boy, they get kind of sloppy. So they look all straight now. Just eyeballing it down. Not from this one, but from the other ones. And then the other side's already done. Maybe you guys come by and lay it level on a flat surface, press down on it a little bit, make sure everything's all even. I don't know what you tankers do. But what I like to do is add just a bit of glue on the inside. Just to make sure you have a nice welded, secured part. Sprocket wheel over there. Flip it around and do the other side. We'll be going ahead and removing the road wheels for this tank. A very laborious process, but I do want to mention before I start cutting, this is one of 2 trees that I have. It looks like these guys here are your road wheels around the periphery, around the perimeter, around the outer edge, while these 2 are your idler wheels, those wheels in the front, and these 2 are your sprocket wheels, the wheels, those gears, as I mentioned to you, in the back. So I'm going to start off by cutting out the road wheels first. Chop those guys off. I mentioned to you before, big giant part of the tree, little splinter there. So I get those nail clippers and I just simply lop off the end so that, you know, it's pretty flush. It does its job. It does leave a bit of a mess, so make sure you clean up after yourselves. And then, for the first time, I'm going to go ahead and sand it down. Since I don't want to create such a flattened edge on those wheels, this from Brookhurst Hobbies. Great place over here in California. My second home. Shout out to Brookhurst Hobbies. I'm going to just go ahead and just file that nub down. Finger there. And there you go. Pretty flattened piece, if I may say so myself. And then just flip it over to the other side and do the same thing. And that gets it down. So once you do all those, as I've already done with this other tree, as already mentioned, as already done with all these wheels here. Boy, what a laborious process. Go ahead and just remove those and sand them down. So in the last part of today, we're going to go ahead and attach these polycaps. Kind of hard to see that there. These little plastic polycaps that are quite often used on movable parts, tanks, robots, Gundam, the whole thing. Gundam? And the thing I want to point out, so all you need to do is just take one of those polycaps, put it inside, in this case, one of the wheels, and then you're going to just glue 2 halves down. Now, just really quickly, for those of you who are new to tanks, like I kind of am, don't put glue in the polycap. Instead, just go around the wheel there, and then quickly attach and press down your wheel. And then do the same thing for the sprocket. Attach that polycap inside. Now, on this one, I'm going to go to the opposite side of that sprocket drive wheel. It's really dainty. And then just add that on there. I do want to point out that the sprocket does have a tooth. So make sure you match up the tooth with the groove. The groove that you see right there on the top there. And then I like to, just to reinforce it, add another swipe of glue. Get that inside. And then you should have them all set and ready. Now these guys go on the forward and back end of your tank. There's a hole that's there. Just attach it to that pin. And they should slide right on the side. Give it a few twists. Same thing for the idler. All right, this seems to be working pretty well. And eventually, when you put your tracks on, I'm not going to put them on now, because I still need to. I was afraid that was going to happen. Make sure you let that glue sit. This one's going to be a little bit. Okay, I don't break the teeth. There you go. Good job, Mo. Didn't break anything. Okay. Let the glue sit for at least half a day. This one's I've already done. It wasn't set just yet. And there you go. So that's step one, part one. I'm not going to do the rest of the road wheels. I do want to paint them. I'm going to paint them using Tamiya XF67 NATO green. Now, this is going to be the base coat. Okay, I will prime most of the tank. But the wheels, you know, I mean, I really don't think you need to prime them. You could if you want to. And then add your paint. Make sure you use the proper thinner. Don't use Humbrol. Don't use AK. Use the Tamiya. I think it's X20A thinner. I have it in the back. And I'll paint these guys up. And we won't attach them. We won't paint the rest of the hull. And just paint the wheels only. Just these guys. So that's why I'm not putting the poly caps on there. So that way I can actually paint them on there without any paint get inside that hole. Where the poly cap would be. So I'm going to just paint them separately. Detach the two halves. Flip them over. Paint the other sides. And then mask the rest of the rubber portion of those wheels. Do I have mask for those? I don't know. Maybe I should. I should get mask for those. We'll see. Anyways, and modest on the end of part one. And looking forward to seeing you in part two. Part two will be the hull. The upper hull. Attaching all the parts on the upper hull. Okay, see you soon.